So this is my 15th time being at Singularity University doing different events. Peter did something incredibly important among the many important things that he did in his brief presentation, which is to calibrate the number of you that are coming to Singularity University for your first time. And my sort of reckoning in the group was that it was well over half of you are coming for the very first time. So I want to give you a little preview of coming attractions. You're going to be sheep-dipped through a variety of interesting technologies in the next few days. You will be exhausted, you will be exhilarated, you will be surprised, you will be shocked from time to time. The understanding of both the exponential changes that various individual technologies are driving, compounded when they converge and cross-fertilize with each other, will help you to understand in your gut, not just in your head, in the next few days, that there's all kinds of blind spots happening to you that you're simply not paying attention to. And your ability to get that is worth the price of admission, okay? But for most people, what tends to happen, sort of at the end of the first day, sometime towards the middle of the second day, is a certain level of exhaustion, idea fatigue sets in, and beneath that, a sort of thinly veiled panic. There's going to come a moment, I promise you, when even if you're returning to Singularity University, you're going to just have one of those holy shit moments when you say, I wasn't paying enough attention to this is really big, I don't know if I'm up for this. There will be moments like that. And so what I try to do when I come to Singularity University is to be a counterbalancing force. An individual who says, just at the moment that we need it, there's an actual parallel revolution going on in innovation. Innovation is, for the first time in its history, giving up its secrets. I teach innovation effectiveness and innovation frontiers at one of the world's leading business schools, Kellogg Graduate School of Management, and the world's leading graduate design school. I've been teaching this topic now for 34 years. And yet I always teach it in a way that describes how the old days of innovation were 3 years ago. So it really is exciting to know, just as Peter said at the end of his presentation, that we live in the most exciting time in the history of our species, that is equally true of innovation. And I'm going to try to break that down for you and have it less be about scary sort of journey at high speed, recklessly around corners you cannot see around, and instead tell you that there are simple, basic ways that you can understand how to innovate effectively. Now, there is a very hard thing underneath all of that, which is that just as Peter was talking about the amygdala program to notice dangerous things, not positive things, as human beings, we tend to notice only those changes that happen at sort of the scale of our normal life experience. So some of you might be old enough to recognize this technology. When it converted to a digital form, fancying myself a digital guy, I rushed out and repurchased all of my music all over again, right? And then later, when a cabal of technologists in Cupertino figured out how to turn it into a digital file, I repurchased all my music all over again. And I'm convinced there is still an evil cabal working day and night in Cupertino, convinced that if they figure out the next zippy file format, MP lightning bolt or something like that, the idiot Larry Keeley will once again repurchase all 33,000 songs on his iPad. But no, that's not what happened, right? Not to me, not to you. What happened is we learned to get our music in a different business model too. So one of the most important messages I'm going to give you is that you can't really spot the future if you continue to expect it to be a straight line extrapolation of technologies. You have to see it as a conjunction of when things are changing experiences, capabilities, and business models put together. That's what's most predictive of the next badass breakthroughs that will change the world, which is pretty darn exciting. Now, I'm going to break this down into 3 bite-sized nuggets for you. The first of those 3 is that there's a radical change in how your company should be operating. And it doesn't matter whether it's a multi-billion-dollar company or a startup. This radical change is brand new, and it can best be understood as a completely different equation about what's tight and what's loose in the average enterprise. When I teach this topic at Kellogg, I usually tell the students that we really can't get away with hosing them to the tune of $70,000 a year for tuition if we make it as simple as you should think differently about what's tight and what's loose. But I'm going to say that to you, okay? I'm just going to make it really easy. There's never been such a time in being able to loosen up what you can do and how you can do it. Let me illustrate, okay? Let's just imagine for the moment that every single person in this room is the manager of a greengrocer department in some different Whole Foods somewhere in the universe, okay? So let's just say that you, sir, decide that you will only hire those employees that have personally worked on organic farms. You just think that's going to be part of the integrity that you want to have in your particular Whole Foods. And you, madam, you're going to decide that you will only hire people that are pretty good at cooking, not just selling produce, because you want them to be able to talk with authenticity and sort of verve about the things that they'd love to do with this gorgeous, squash that they have in front of them. And you, sir, you're just deciding that all you're going to do is hire people that have a minimum of 6 piercings and 17 tattoos. You see, because here's the deal. What's loose at Whole Foods is pretty much everything. Every one of you could decide different things. There's no employee manual. There's no guidebook. There's no set of rules you have to comply with. So what's tight? What's tight is every single Monday morning, everybody in this room gets a really lovely little report. And whatever the experiments with the people that have been in organic farms or the people that can cook or the tats and the piercings, you're going to discover right quick which of those innovations paid off. And every single Monday morning, you get a report that says how you did compared to last week, last month, and last quarter, and a year ago, week, month, and quarter, in your store. But then you flip the page, and everybody in the room gets to be stack ranked. And it's not likely, given the talent we have in this room, that any of you would be in the bottom 10% of performers. But if you are, you're going to get a mean little robo email that says, dude, this is not our preferred performance level. You got 3 weeks to climb out of the basement. That's not the exciting bit. That's boring. That's 1970s era management style. What's really exciting is the many people in this room who are driving performance, perhaps the surprising idea that tats and piercings matter, will pop up. And if you're in the top 5% of performance in the world, sir, you're obligated to send out an email to everybody else in the room that says what you did last week. This is a sensing learning network. It radically alters the normal condition in retail or restaurant or hotel businesses, where if somebody has a great idea and it provably works, the normal diffusion of innovation rate is 12 to 14 years before every other Hilton in the Hilton chain would copy it. 12 to 14 years. What's tight and what's loose? This is one of the really interesting and big questions. Let's talk about it with Alibaba for a moment, the most valuable company on planet Earth right now. Alibaba is fundamentally a mashup of different things. You want to create an Alibaba? Here's what you do. You take Amazon, you combine it with Etsy, PayPal, eBay, a whole bunch of Twitter companies, a whole bunch of social media companies, and a delivery system that's more efficient than UPS or FedEx and basically depends on bicycles. And nothing at Alibaba is new. It is just stitched together from ideas gathered from around the world, and then it gets interesting. Then they figure out what to do to make it culturally cool in China. So Jack Ma, the guy that runs Alibaba, noticed a pattern in the data. He said, we have this problem in China. Retail sales dipped nationwide in the middle of November. What are we going to do about that? Well, they ripped off something else, Valentine's Day. They decided that they would create a new holiday where everybody in China should do something significant for their hot honey. Okay? A card, some chocolate, some flowers, certainly a gift or an item from Alibaba. They created a logo and a name for it about 6 years ago. It's called Singles Day, and it happens on November 11th. 1111. Lots of singles, get it? I know. And then they figured out how to give people the sense that they should do something. On Singles Day 2014, I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in history, people in one region of the world gave away 70,000 room vacuum cleaners as an emotional gift. I know. In this country, you give a room vacuum cleaner for Valentine's Day, you expect to be whacked with it later that same day. No one had ever sold 70,000 room vacuum cleaners or anything close to that number on a single day in history. This is the reason why on Singles Day 2014, Alibaba sold $6 billion of goods and services on a single day. It's why that logo is smiling, okay? And it's also why a month later, they were able to successfully bring out the biggest IPO in the history of the world. But then they trumped it all on Singles Day 2015 because they came up with yet another cultural wrinkle. They said, not only should you do something for your hot honey on Singles Day, but really, if you're very attracted to this other person, you should make sure that your gift, your little gesture, is time-stamped at 11:11 a.m. I mean, who wouldn't be touched? Surely you all check the timestamp of your gifts that come from Amazon when people send you a gift from Amazon, don't you? And in China, many people panicked. They missed the morning window, and Jack Ma said, no, don't worry, all is not lost. We can still hit 11:11 p.m. And this is why on a Singles Day 2015, they sold, get this, $14.3 billion worth of stuff. I know. That's bigger, just so we put it into perspective, than all of the United States of America combined on Cyber Monday. All on a single day by culturally reinventing a holiday and doing it with technology that's been borrowed from the world over and just loosely configured together. This is the way the world works, okay? I assume you're mostly fans of Uber. How many of you use Uber on a regular basis? It flipped last year. Just a year ago, 70% of local urban travel went through taxis, and 20% was Uber. This year, data just out, it flipped. So it's 70% Uber, 20% taxis. Part of the reason is Uber's clever enough to assume that the user has a supercomputer in their pocket or purse. And they make a lot of things elegant. They make it a convenient transaction. You kind of know where the driver is. You know the driver's name. The driver knows your name. One of my favorite bits about it is it creates this nice off. You know you're being rated. The driver knows he or she's being rated. So what they do is they bust their cheeks to try to figure out how to make you happy. It's a nice off, right? That doesn't happen in the taxi business. But here's what's really interesting. The power inside of Uber is centered in city managers. If you're the city manager in any Uber city anywhere in the world, you have a tremendous autonomy. What's tight, what's loose? Well, what's loose is you can try to fix or change any button you want on the interface in New York, San Francisco, Boston, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, wherever you want today, with your little programming team. What's tight is that within minutes of the time you try that new button, it will be ranked on how well it's achieving its intended goal, and it will move up in those rankings because of a very cheap technology called Atlassian HipChat, essentially an industrial, robust version of Twitter. Okay? So let me reveal unto you now the entire tech stack that makes Uber Uber. This is what they plug in to run the company globally. There is one and only one patent that Uber has. They just got it recently. You might have noticed it in the interface recently when you were ordering an Uber and you got a message that said, your driver is completing a trip nearby. That's the only thing that they do that's unique. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a critically important principle here, which is that 21st century innovation is less and less about primary invention and more about the elegant integration of known things. You see this personally as the appification of your world. There are more than 1.5 million apps on Android and on iOS. Nobody needs that many, of course, so we pick the ones that seem relevant. And from that point forward, they manage themselves in a relatively painless way. You don't have to do it like you used to in PC days of handing it to an 11-year-old or your tech support person every 3 weeks and say, it doesn't work, make it work. Okay? These things are now managing themselves. That's how we see the world with these characteristics that I've listed here: asset light, faster, smarter, connected, distributed, decentralized, shared, porous, rated, and open. But guess what? The piece of the revolution that I'm telling you about in this first module is that that's also happening in how we run corporations. And if you're not paying attention to that, you need to know that that is what's making it possible for startups to happen for $5,000 instead of $5 million, as Peter Diamandis illustrated to us in his opening remarks. This is the structural reason that that's occurring. And what's so exciting about that is you're not bound anymore by your costly, slow, aging technology infrastructure. If you're jealous of the efficiency of Amazon Web Services, check into their Snowball service. This was introduced about 5-6 months ago. Some of you might be saying, yeah, I'd really like to be as agile, cheap, and affordable as Amazon Web Services, but I got 30 terabytes of data, and it's housed in old mainframes. Amazon will send you a Snowball with a FedEx messenger. You can load up to 50 terabytes of data on the Snowball. Give it back to that same FedEx guy. They will have it up and running inside their cloud securely in 24 hours. Total cost to you, including the FedEx delivery, both ways, $200. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing ever like this has happened in history. It's the reason why it's a really exciting time to start a new business. Second revolution that I want to tell you about is that there's an amazing revolution in what I call innovation tradecraft. If you stop doing innovation in the ways that are founded on mythology, the idea of brainstorming and more ideas is better than fewer ideas, and that there's no such thing as a bad idea. I mean, this is where you can get lots of insights from watching the news, especially the political news. We're seeing bad ideas everywhere, ladies and gentlemen, okay? So when we learn to install the tradecraft that actually functions, it's pretty exciting. Now, one of the earliest scientists of innovation was my buddy, Clay Christensen, right? He's the guy that gave us this important insight that there's two ambitions for innovation. You can improve the known business, or you can invent a new business, right? Clay Christensen introduced this idea to us 21 years ago, and he called that stuff at the top sustaining innovation and the stuff at the bottom disruptive innovation. Since Clay Christensen made those assertions, we've been able to finally plug in interesting data, surprising data. If you're running your company brilliantly, what you should be doing is a surprising amount of what I've renamed simple innovation versus sophisticated innovation. The simple innovation, out of every 100 initiatives you pursue, should be 92 to 95% of them. The sophisticated innovation should be 5 to 8% of the things you try. But here's the really important message that very few people are aware of. We have never seen any company anywhere in the world, and we've worked with more than 800 leading companies around the world, be able to deliver both of those outcomes with the same process. At a minimum, you're going to need two separate processes. One that's supposed to improve your known business, and a second that is supposed to give you badass new growth businesses that are exciting and different. If you're running either of those with a stage gate process, I have news for you. Please get out of the Pleistocene era as soon as you can. There's better ways to do both sides of this. As it happens, I wrote a book about this, and I spent way too much money on the book. This is not a sales pitch for the book, okay? This is a rueful admission of stupidity. And why? One day, sort of in the 4th year of writing the book, one of my brilliant anthropologists is walking down the hallway past me, sort of paying attention to her cell phone, and she looks up and says, "How's that book thing coming?" And I thought she was serious, so I said, "Well, you know, in chapter 14, I'm really working with something that's really hard, and it's got a hurt on my brain." And she says, "Uh-huh." And never really pulled her head out of her cell phone, just kept walking and said, "You know, people don't actually read books anymore, right?" This, ladies and gentlemen, is why you hire anthropologists. They remind you about how the world is changing. So forget the fact that I overinvested in the actual science and tradecraft of how innovation functions. Let me reveal unto you now the reason you don't have to read the book, okay? There's a vitally important discovery at the heart of the book that we did with really amazing methodology about 19 years ago, okay? We took 1,200 innovations spread out over a 200-year time frame of history, and stuck them in computers and asked the question, mathematically, did they have anything in common? So we were comparing things that were quite old, like Model T Fords, to things that were at the time brand new, like Cirque du Soleil circuses. And my best methodology guys were saying, I don't think there's going to be anything coming out of this. These things are too weird. They're too different from each other. So we were as shocked as anybody else to discover that there are now, and wait for it, this is the magic part, have always been 10 distinct types of innovation. This is a discovery, ladies and gentlemen, not some annoying consultant framework, okay? When you talk about a discovery, scientists describe it as something that's true, whether you knew about it or not. And here's why it matters. The stuff in blue, we teach that in business schools. The stuff in the middle right here, we teach that in engineering schools. The stuff over here, we teach that in advertising agencies and creative schools and anthropological schools and in design schools. When was the last time you sat in a meeting in your own offices where the low-ranking engineers sitting there thinking, this too shall pass, these people don't get it at all, and the high-ranking people trained at Harvard Business School or Wharton or Stanford, and the creative people that everybody gets to dismiss on the presumption that they're fueled by illicit substances not really legal in the enterprise. We're having a collegial conference where everybody felt like they were trying to get the future to show up somewhat ahead of its regularly scheduled arrival. And yet, the evidence is crystal clear. We have rerun the analytics every other year for 19 straight years, okay? This is one of the most well-researched discovery frameworks in the history of the world. This stuff in blue, it's about how you organize your company. The stuff in the gold here, it's what your engineers should be doing to change things. And the stuff in the red, it's what you should be doing to make sure you're giving people the best experience in your category by far. When you learn to create a breakthrough, rule of thumb, you'll be using 5 or more of these types of innovation, and all 3 colors will be represented. And what that gives you is bolder ideas that are much easier for you to implement because you're more conscious about it and much harder for other people to copy. Bolder ideas, easier to implement, harder to copy. That's the prescription for something that has the power to change the world, to answer the challenge Peter Diamandis gave you of what are you going to do to change the lives of 1 billion people. This gives you a mechanical way to answer that important question. Now, that's just one piece of tradecraft. In my firm, Doblin, now the Deloitte go-to-market sort of innovation capability building firm, you don't get hired unless you're familiar with about 70 pieces of tradecraft. You're probably world-class good at a dozen of those, and you might be the primogenitor of one of them. That's how you get hired at Doblin. For you, though, here's what you need to know. There are 10 pieces of innovation tradecraft that I'm going to sneeze onto the screen here. You probably haven't heard about hardly any of them, and collectively they're the things that will give you a 20 times lift in return on investment. So if you're working on a project, you need some framing tools. Why? Because the evidence shows clearly that when people first sit down to crack a problem, more than 90% of the time, as much as 95% of the time, they've framed it wrong. They haven't defined the actual problem right in the first place. If you're going to have innovation managed consistently across your enterprise, you need some way to define it, measure it, and teach it. Doesn't have to be this one. There's 3 or 4 other really good ones. I'm agnostic about it. What I'm going to tell you, though, is you can't just borrow something from here and read an article there and stitch in one little piece of lore you got from over here. You've got to do something that's consistent and systemic. If you want to know your starting place, and heaven knows you should, there are really great ways to diagnose your condition for innovation in 2 very basic things. What is your performance over the last 5 years, or whatever number of years you'd like to look, and what are your capabilities? That can now be done for you in a matter of weeks, telling you exactly where you stand. If you want to stop brainstorming, which I believe to be a carcinogen the Surgeon General should get around to regulating, this is the methodology to do it, about which more in a moment. Once you have a few dozen or a few hundred ideas, you better be managing those in a disciplined way to know which ones are serving your current customers, which ones are serving your new customers in some new way, and which ones are serving either new customers and new capabilities that are particularly challenging for your own enterprise. After that, you should ask the question of what you can do to lightweight innovation and get it to cost a fraction of what used to be normal. And then you should figure out where you're going to put your pilot so that it doesn't threaten your entire enterprise, where you're going to stick your war rooms to be tracking the trends, and what you're going to do to create the right metrics, incentives, and rewards inside of your enterprise to dramatically give you not only better push technology, but better pull technology. Here's the amazing facts. If you don't use these kinds of tools with innovation, the normal expected outcome everywhere in the world, across all industries and all geographies, is that fewer than 5% of your innovation initiatives should return the cost of capital. You do this stuff, the worst you can expect is a 35% success rate. Innovation is, ladies and gentlemen, giving up its secrets. Let's take apart the one that just helps you develop a smaller number of bigger ideas. I'm showing you one I use with students all the time. On this page, the 14 basic questions student teams have to ask and answer, usually in about a day and a half, to be able to build themselves a breakthrough. On this page, the 116 known operating advances that they can plug in to make sure their idea is not only a good idea, but easy to implement. On this page, the most radical accelerants and catalysts that allow you to get innovation to cost a fraction of what used to be normal. And on this page, the worksheet that allows you to build the business model as it's likely to change over multiple stages of your business success. This is the dead opposite of brainstorming. People work on this for half a day to 3 days, and what they end up with is not 437 ideas that nobody's going to do anything with, but rather one idea that they're all willing to hang their careers on. That's a really astonishing capability. And oh, by the way, the meetings were long and surreal, but I convinced Deloitte to give that away for free. I know. They were really, really weird meetings. So the thing that you can do, if you have an American iTunes identity, is download the 10 Types of Innovation app, and that will coach you through how you can learn these methods and use them for free, okay? Now here's the deal. I've been giving you this sense that there is a brand new revolution in innovation tradecraft. What you're going to get as a return on investment is a function of what you're willing to install. So the basic things that everybody should use is the tradecraft kinds of things I was just describing to you, including diagnostics, possibly a center of excellence where you hire some of these kids who have advanced degrees in innovation, and some mission for innovation that your senior executives will align on. That's a really great foundation. Every company in a time of radical change does better when they do those 4 basic things. Add to that next the ability to identify themes that are changing in your industry radically that you don't know the answer to. You don't have to have the answers. You just have to have the ideas of things you're going to pay attention to. Your ability then to author best-in-class platforms, and then to make those things super cheap with crowds, clouds, partners, and prizes, and some basic sense of the ecosystem that you're trying to serve and how it's shifting will keep you from getting blindsided. On top of that, what you should do is to figure out how to take your very senior executives and give them metrics for innovation, not just for period performance. Let me illustrate that principle. We've got a really interesting audience, unbelievably talented people here at the Global Summit for Singularity University. How many of you in this room were given a moment at some point in your history when, on the basis of no data whatsoever, mind you, somebody said, you know, I think I'm going to place a bet on you. You show up early, you stay late, you work hard. I just like you. I'm giving you a shot at something you're really not qualified to do. How many of you have had that experience in the room? If you take a look around, well over 70% of the hands have gone up. When that happened to you, I want you to think back to what went through you emotionally. If you're like most people, it was a combination of exhilaration and sheer terror, stark terror about what on earth you were going to do to live up to this radically different expectation of your performance for something you clearly were not qualified for. That's the mechanisms that we manage at the top. We give incentives to senior leaders who are running P&L responsibility so that they don't get their bonuses, or at least 40% of their bonuses, unless they can show what their future growth businesses are going to be. We also make sure that high potential young people are the primary authors of those breakthroughs. So they're building the business, the industry, the transformation that they as millennials would be proud to be part of. And remember what I said to you a few moments ago. The normal success rate for innovation is less than 5%. You do this stuff in the basement, the worst we've achieved in 14 years is a 35% success rate. Add the stuff in the middle, you can get a 50% success rate. Think about that for a second. If more than half of your initiatives return the cost of capital, when you try them, you're suddenly in a time of a really exciting invention machine. And when you start to add the stuff that makes sure that the most respected leaders in your business don't get their bonuses if they're not able to tell compelling stories with pilots that they've prototyped, tested, and proven effective, if they can't describe what they're doing to create growth businesses that are stunning and exciting in the future, they should get a whack in the wallet, okay? And that thing, the combination of superior push tradecraft and superior pull leadership, gives us an astonishing transformation of the way innovation is actually done. All right, one more little surprise I'd like to give you. There's a third piece of the revolution that very few people are paying enough attention to, which is that in most cases, such as the financial services industry, the leading thing people still pay attention to is products. Trust me on this, there's no one anywhere in the world that needs another financial services product. Looking at the average age of the people in the room, when you were kids, financial services products in their entirety numbered around 18. Do you know it's well over 44,000 now? Even the very best bankers in the world have a 0% probability that they're going to be using exactly the right products in exactly the right sequence to get their life goals achieved. They don't know enough about how to configure it. Products are no longer the key to what we should be looking at and for. Platforms are the new minimum viable solution. When I was a kid, that's what platforms consisted of. Some of you are trying to recognize those. Those are, of course, the shoes that Elton John wore for the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Okay, nobody cares. Here's the thing. Since Elton John was wearing those silly shoes, these are the things that have emerged that have gone on to change the world. And they share a variety of characteristics. They're all digitally leveraged. They're connected. They don't care very much about boundaries of countries and political systems. They care a lot about how to get more people to have the experiences that they make possible. So when I teach platform theory, I use a complicated definition for the professionals that I'm teaching and a simple definition. I'm going to treat you like professionals for the next few moments. You want to create one of these things at your own home or office, here's what you do. You create an integrated offering that delivers a fantastic, comprehensive, end-to-end great experience for the customer. And it's typically only loosely controlled by the platform owner. Now, I work at Deloitte, and about once a week, I get a call from somebody who says, dude, you know, we're really officially opposed to things that are loosely controlled. Do you have to say that? And I say, yes, I do have to say that. And here's the reason. Part of the reason why platforms are so cool is they're adaptable by the very individuals and groups of people that take them up. No one ever anticipated when we put bad glue on a piece of paper the 100,000 plus different ways people would come to use Post-it notes. All the great platforms are loosely controlled because you don't have to be a genius that way. You just have to put it in the hands of intelligent users, okay? Under the covers, you better be good at something that other people don't know how to do. If you're very clever, you will use your platform to orchestrate dozens, maybe hundreds or even thousands of suppliers to help you make your thing cheap and smart and cool. And if you're very, very clever, you will use it to reorganize entire industries the way a modern cancer center does, or the way Alibaba does, or the way Airbnb does, okay? You'll create an ecosystem that you're at the center of. Now, some of these words are in color. Anybody want to hazard a guess why? It's a reminder of this important principle of multiple types of innovation. I urge you to remember one thing, that if you want to create a breakthrough, use 5 or more types of innovation, all 3 colors. What you're seeing here is that same genetic code of a breakthrough revealed a different way. Now, this is complicated, of course, and nobody appreciates that. So let me tell you why it's exciting. Once you create your beautiful platform, once it starts to organize the world, once it starts to create tens of thousands of extraordinarily fanatically devoted fans and customers, it's a very different beast altogether. Indeed, to explain your good idea, all you have to do is you simply shout from the tallest treetops, we took something that used to be rare or costly or hard, and we made it easy, compelling, possibly even free. That's what's sort of beautiful about a platform. It's complicated when you build it. It's shockingly delightful and easy to explain and for people to embrace. So that's the minimum you want to think about, and there's gold buried in them Nar Hills. These are the most valuable platforms on the consumer side in the world. Punchline, the least valuable is worth $1 billion US, and they range to well over 40 billion US dollars, okay? And here's the corresponding list of the hottest business-to-business platforms in the world. Least valuable is worth about 10 billion US dollars, and they range to well over 200 billion US dollars. Ask your teams to think this way. You too can do things that change the world. Simply put, the way you get that to happen is you don't think just about the technology, you also figure out how to get the business model to be amazing and the experience to be fantastic too. So let me illustrate that. How many of you are Amazon Prime members, just so I can calibrate? Okay, put your hands up for a moment. By my reckoning, that's about 70% of the room, and I bet if I asked how many of you come from other countries where you can't really do Amazon Prime easily, yep, that counts for most of the rest of you. Okay, so I want to remind those of you that are Amazon Prime members how this happened to you. Okay, about 6 years ago, you got an innocuous-seeming email, and it basically said, dude, you know, of all of our customers everywhere in the world, you're one of our favorites. And so we've got a really cool chance for you today to join the Cool Kids Club, and here's how that works. You pay us $79, and then you're going to get free 2-day shipping on millions of items. Now, there were some smart people at Amazon. They thought to themselves, you know, people are going to see through this, right? We're saying that it's $79 and it's free. So we better offer them something else too. So what they said was, not only do you get free unlimited, shipping of things in 2 days, but you can also get instant streaming of 41,000 movies and TV episodes. And they have huge amounts of data at Amazon. They knew exactly which 41,000 movies and TV episodes nobody ever watched. But suddenly those are available to you for free. And wait, there's still more. You can borrow, you can't have, mind you, digital rights management and all that, but you can borrow 350,000 things to read on your Kindle. Kindle sold separately. Don't even try to read it on your iPad sucker. Okay, that was the small print. And millions of us have signed up. And what happened? Brilliant analysts, trained no doubt at Wharton in financial wizardry, said, oh my God, this is a catastrophe. Auga, auga, dive. This company exists on very slim margins. This is the death knell. And here's what they said. They said, we calculate that everybody that joins for $79 is going to get $90 worth of services. That means we're going to lose $11 on every one of you. Put your hands up again, Prime members. Oh my God, this is awful. But what really happened, of course, is that the average person trying to get their free shipping bought 1.5 times as frequently per year and spent, get this, 2.4 times as much money per year as the same individuals did before they joined the Cool Kids Club. So before you joined, you spent $505 a year. Afterwards, $1,224. What does that mean? That means in practical terms, Amazon got an amazing $78 in incremental profits for every $79 they charged you to become Prime members. So what did they do last year? Who knows? Raise the price, right? $99. Now let's go back to Schumpeter for a moment, right? Supply, demand, price, all that, elasticity. How many of you said when they raised your price to be in the Cool Kids Club by $20 a year, that's it, I'm out of here, I'm had it with these guys? How many of you dropped your membership? Not a single hand up in the room. What did the rest of you do? Said, I'm going to have to buy more shit. Here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. On any given day, very few people know this fact, 90% of everything Amazon ships goes to Prime members, 7 days a week. And this is why their stock price bounced by 294% in a 2-year period, and why Jeff Bezos could buy a newspaper of all weird things. Let's take a look at some quick platform thinking. Google reinvented media fundamentally and managed to become the most valuable media company in 6 years, including ways that they engage customers to do things like their logos for them. There are also ways in which machine intelligence is being harnessed to radically alter the way in which our devices get to fit into our lives in more elegant ways. Nest, using 6 types of innovation, was so attractive to Google that they spent $3.4 billion in cash to buy them. Airbnb has created this extraordinary network built on trust, and in only 4.5 years, they managed to have more property under management than the oldest hotel chain in the world, Hilton, achieved in 136 years. 5 types of innovation. Salesforce, pretty much taken over this town, does so by having about $11 billion in sales and moving most of their apps into the cloud so that the users can start to build them themselves when they choose to. And this is so extraordinarily successful that one recent report from IDC says that the value of the ecosystem created by Salesforce's $11 billion in annual sales is about $272 billion. Okay? So here's the thing. We're seeing this everywhere, little companies and big companies. This is General Electric's new Predix engine, offered up as the first ever industrial internet and radically altering the efficiency with which the 5 sectors that they focus on, like healthcare and transportation and energy generation and distribution, are getting massive increases in efficiency. That's a perfect example of ecosystems level thinking. Most people have started to say that we are going to experience in conventional companies a period of slow growth. But when you really look at the data, what you discover is the companies growing at 5 to 8 times the rate of the background economy that they're serving are all ecosystems. At Deloitte, we put together a pretty interesting paper on this called Business Ecosystems Come of Age. You can have that for free too, okay? So here's my gratuitous advice for you. 3 things to watch out for. Machine intelligence is the ante. Connect things to each other, make them smart, simple, elegant, and delightful for people to use. That's the basics. If you're not doing that, you're probably not going to be a good player in an industry. Second thing you want to do is stitch enough of those together so that you have the world's best platform around your topic. And the third thing you want to do is to anticipate the way in every industry there will be at least one major player that essentially builds a new ecosystem. We live in a time of business model warfare. We live in a time of experience model warfare, not just technological warfare, and the very best firms will be doing this by creating this sense of exponential innovation, by changing how their company operates, what it's focused on, and specifically how they get innovation to occur with the right tradecraft. I'm giving you the slides too, folks. So you want the slides, go to clientweb.doblin.com. It will ask you for an event code. The event code is Exponential Space Innovation. That'll get you all of these thoughts. I hope you will use these ideas to ameliorate that panic that will set in about this time tomorrow when you realize there really is an astonishing amount of change going on and it freaks you out, okay? This is a beautiful time, as Peter described. I'm always mindful of the beautiful thing George Bernard Shaw wrote 58 years ago when he said, you know, God may have made this world, but that's really no excuse for us not to make it better. Go forth, make something amazing, make something that really will change the world. It'll be the hardest work you ever loved. Thank you very much.